welcome back to Higher Ground, the series where we unpack exciting topics, we meet industry experts, and we chat with the movers and the shakers that are shaping the world of work today. So, today we're diving into the fascinating and yet sometimes very unpredictable world of talent acquisition. We're going to be talking about leadership, entrepreneurship, and team building while taking a look at what's ahead, what's coming up in the new year. So, we actually titled this episode The Best, Worst, and Wildly Unexpected Moments in Global Talent Acquisition. So, we have two industry veterans reflecting on their evolution of recruitment, sharing seasoned insights, real stories, reflective humor, and a glimpse of what's potentially next. So I'm thrilled to welcome our extraordinary guest and global recruiter, the renowned Hung Lee, who is also the curator of Recruiting Brain Food, joining us from London. And of course, Rob Mailich, our global CEO and founder of the Red Eye Holborn Recruitment Group, who's back on home turf here in SA as we speak for a few weeks before he returns back to the UK. Welcome, guys.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Nick. So it's brilliant to see you and great to have this conversation.
Amazing.
Thanks for having me on your podcast as well, Nick. And when you say two veterans, I've just got to ask what exactly you mean by veterans. Myself and Hung are exactly the same age. And out of the three of us on the screen, I can tell you now, the two of us are still looking great.
Absolutely. I think the veterans word really just focuses on the years and years of recruitment experience and the things that you have seen in terms of just the evolution of recruitment. And we're so excited to dive straight into that. But we do promise a very a good conversation today that is lighthearted, insightful, and full of stories. And that will truly capture how wonderfully complex and sometimes wild recruitment can be. So yeah, I think let's get straight into it. Starting back in the good old days where we had fax machines and fast track that many years later, a couple of mouse clicks later, you've applied for an amazing opportunity. So I think that just speaks to how recruitment has evolved. But what I want to discuss with both of you today is how has hiring evolved for you since you've both started in the industry? The tools, the speed, the expectations. I think we all remember when LinkedIn was brand new and the jobs and the job boards were being ruled. But Hung, let's start with you first. What are your thoughts and your takeaways of how the recruitment world has really evolved?
There's been tremendous evolution. I count myself fortunate as being a veteran enough to have seen some of these big shaping sort of moments. LinkedIn definitely was one of those things, which I thought was a huge, a huge wave of change in recruiting. So was the online job boards prior to that. And so is AI now today. So we're witnessing probably my third sort of huge wave of technological change. In a really weird way, I think what AI might do, it might undo some of the things that we ended up developing as best practice during the LinkedIn era. And even the online job board era. And I do think a lot of the pre-technology recruitment practices will come back in some ways it will come back in direct sort of form. It will literally be the same thing. And in other ways, it will come back in a kind of reformulated AI-enabled form. But those practices will come back. So, for instance, we're going to see much more like headhunting style, relationship building type recruitment coming back because AI enablement, one of the unintended consequences of that is that it just made the entire world even more noisy than ever before. It's collapsing the trust signals that we previously had relied upon. And it will basically mean that there'll be a premium on trusted relationships, trusted candidates, trusted recruiters, and that just spins back, to recruiting in the 1970s and 80s again. So we're going to see a return to some of this and all kinds of sort of things that were true once that were not true because technology changed it. They'll come true again because technology has changed things once more in this era. So yeah, tremendously exciting. But some of the old truths will come back in force.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Hung. And I mean, Rob, on your side, what have you seen over the last 15 years plus?
So, Nix, I couldn't agree more with what Hung says. I'm going to go from now to backward, actually. Because the
Hmm.
number of people that come to me or that I hear saying, I've submitted my CV to 100 different companies and I don't get a call back from the recruiter. I don't get a call back from the company. What is wrong with me? Why is everything going belly up, etc.? And that in itself is the biggest issue. Now, let's rewind a little bit. Now, I'm going to go back to 1993 when I started my article. So remember, I haven't been a recruiter all my life. I've been a candidate. I've been somebody on the other side. So did my articles, then landed up in London, and that was when I proper had my experience with recruiters. Now, in those days, okay, I'm going to say that it was beyond the days of typing your CV out, folding it up, putting it into the letterbox. The recruiter received it from the letterbox. Then after that, they would send it or post it to their client. It was all either letters or phone calls. So that was the good old days. That was a little bit before my time. So I was starting within the faxing days and possibly in the early email days when I would send my details on, but it was
Yeah.
probably less so the emails. And so in those days, as a candidate, you would send your CV through, the recruiter would call you, you'd dress up, you'd doll yourself up, you would look as best presented as possible. You'd meet
Yeah.
the recruiter. If they liked you, then what they do is they would send your CV off to the client. You'd doll yourself up. You would go and meet the client. If they liked you, they hired you. There was two or three, processes that you'd have to go through, but they always took some effort. And that was the big thing that changed in the computer age, where now all of a sudden you want to send your CV to a company, you just click, and then the next one, you click. The amount of times that I've seen candidates go, "Well, I can't even remember where I sent my CV, but I've sent it to a number of
Mm.
places." So,
Yeah.
to Hung's point, is from the old days to now, there's less effort, less work, and I think what's going to come back is there's going to have to be more effort from the client and the candidate's perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of similarities, but I'm definitely feeling like the humanness still needs to be there. It is that trust that you build and relationships. I mean, candidates want to work with recruiters because they have that relationship. They feel like, they have someone to talk to, whether it's for improvements or guidance or coaching, as opposed to sending your CV off and applying for 100 different roles and never hearing back from those opportunities. So candidates do become quite despondent. So it is quite an interesting world that we are recruiting in and hearing all the stories in terms of where it all started. And I think that ties in nicely with, the next question around how different is it to recruit in different markets? I mean, predominantly myself, I've worked a lot in the South African market. Rob, I know you've started to tap in quite a bit in the UK market. I mean, from your side, Hung, you've got quite a bit of global experience. I mean, Hung, maybe take us through that in terms of how different is it? The cultural differences, the time zones. What have you picked up?
I think there's going to be like two different answers to this question, which both will be true because the way to think about this is to think there's a globalized layer of talent.
Mm,
So this includes the multinational organizations. They recruit globally.
yeah,
People that cluster in metropolitan centers. They typically work in high tech, like remotable type jobs. Recruitment in those types of functions for those types of companies, I think, is broadly similar. because you're recruiting for a certain type of individual. These days, a denigrated individual in many regards. They call the metropolitan elites or something. So the nationalists hate these folks. But this is the globalized people that kind of work in companies that produce globalized services, and you can find these folks on LinkedIn, for instance.
Yeah.
And you can use a lot of the not traditional tools, but conventional methods to recruit those people. I don't think there's a huge difference apart from logistical issues, as you mentioned, time zones,
Yeah.
and maybe the communication has certainly gone away now because English is the language of use with this type of individual, and this is true everywhere. So if you're even in Latin America, for instance, you're going to find English-speaking Brazilians in Sao Paulo that would basically be recruitable in the same way as you'd recruit a software developer in London or in Cape Town or in New York. Very, very similar. Then you have everyone else, and everyone else is about 99% of recruitment, where local conditions are going to be hugely significant. So these are the people that work typically in location for jobs in sort of country, and for companies that are either national only or of particular sort of interest in a certain area. So you're recruiting for a bank in the Emirates or something like this. Recruiting for someone working in a bank in United Emirates is very different from recruiting for a globalized software developer anywhere in the world. You're going to have to
Yeah.
think about local sort of conditions. You're going to have all kinds of very interesting local jurisdictional issues that you need to be familiar with. There's unspoken cultural nuances that someone who's
Yeah.
remote from the outside is not going to be able to figure out. And there's local
Yeah.
stuff going on that, a globalized recruiter would struggle to deal with. In SA is a classic example also where loads of interesting local nuances, going from legislation on inclusion, going to different
Yeah.
types of the categories of different companies that you have, the energy scenario that you have in the country. So all kinds of different nuances that basically a local person is going to know a huge amount more than someone from outside in. So answer is globalized elite. Yeah, more or less anybody can recruit for that person if you're also a globalized recruiter. But then there's all of these
Yeah.
local nuances, which I think still need that local touch, and ideally, in my opinion, a local in-country
Absolutely.
recruiter to do that delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And from your side, Rob, I mean, how have you found it? I mean, you're living in the UK, you're recruiting that side. How have you found it compared to SA and just being abroad in general? Because I know you worked quite a bit in the US as well.
So absolutely, I've lived and worked in three continents, and the cultural differences are absolutely immense. To put it out there, I am, as you know, a passionate South African. I always love my country, the people, the culture, the diversity. I think, since COVID, the whole world has become a lot bigger and also a lot smaller. And I know that sounds very odd to say, but I think, as an example, when I was sorting out my London broadband, I ended up speaking to an Afrikaans person in Cape Town. So the call center is then based in Cape Town. When I was sorting out my British Airways air tickets, I spoke to a call center in India. And you just think, this whole world has become so much bigger. We've got Hung sitting in the UK, us sitting in South Africa, when we're placing candidates. I mean, one of the commonalities, though, is every client does want English speaking people, and that is what I found is quite common around the world. And a lot of the international businesses, as an example, love South Africans because they speak fluent English, and the rest of the world loves the accent as well, believe it or not. And that's it. But then also, you go off to the UK, and my clients in the UK say, we don't want to arrange visas, we don't want to arrange sponsorships. We've got enough people in the UK. So it depends on who you're chatting to and all of that. But again,
Yeah.
when I find people, I actually find people for jobs. I don't find jobs for people. So effectively, that is what every client is different. Every client wants something different. Some might be cost conscious, so then we'll look abroad. Others just might want a local individual, as Hung says, to understand the local culture, the local nuances, the local regulations, and all of that. So it all
Yeah.
depends. But the world is an amazing place because I think since COVID, we have been allowed to speak to everybody on a screen. We get to learn and understand each
Yeah.
other on a screen. So it's truly amazing what we've got at the moment.
No, technology has definitely strengthened and allowed for many more opportunities because of COVID. But I do like what you said, Rob. I mean, again, it is about, matching the right candidate to an opportunity, so not always the other way around. But again, it's good to be all-rounded, but also have your areas of specialization. But I think it's good to be an all-rounder. And I know
You
earlier
know,
we spoke.
I'll give you an example culturally, and it's a quick little funny story. This morning, actually, it happened. I was in the lift elevator for our international guests, and this lift started getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and there was every culture in this lift. And I then, being the cheeky one, said, "Wow, guys, it's like being in a South African taxi." Everybody laughed. Okay. Then another chap, different ethnicity, says, no, it's like being in Home Affairs, in the Department of Home Affairs. Everyone laughed. More people came into the lift. And then I said, no, 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 guys, it's more like the Department of Transport now, and everyone laughed. And the beautiful thing about the diverse culture is everyone has a sense of humor. And what I found in other places within the world is you can't say things like that. So because there will be offense, there will be maybe a woke environment or something like that. It's just every country has its different nuances, and that is what I love about it. And that's what I love about recruiting still is that human element about it.
Exactly. The connectedness on all of that. And I mean, looking at the human side of recruitment for a second, I mean, are we using tech all the time to do the sourcing, the recruitment, or are we actually reminding ourselves of the incredible networks that we've built, the personal relationships that we've built? Are we tapping into that? Because again, there's been such a big focus on AI and LinkedIn and all these other career portals where you can find skills, but are we actually still tapping into those rich networks? And I don't know if both of you have some insights to that.
Well, I think Hung's networks are greater than mine, but I can always and only say that, all
Mm.
my work, all my business, everything is about personal referrals and relationships. And I'm very grateful that in the 17 years running this business, I've never made a cold call in my life. And, I teach our teams, I teach my kids, be grateful, say thank you, be personal, and those are the things that I value in life. So it doesn't matter how AI is going to change things. I've got a beautiful AI program that's running that can do all those things. But there's nothing, in my opinion, that will ever replace being me, being a human, being kind, being generous, that kind of thing. I don't know how you feel about it, hey, hum.
I think absolutely. I mean, it goes back to the kind of trust conversation we had prior to this
Yeah.
podcast kicking off. Basically, AI has created a lot of positives, but inevitably, suspicion is starting to increase whenever we receive a digital communication of any type. And we're kind of like reflexively trying to figure out, oh, is this AI generated? Is this person real? And even that question itself already starts. Well, that will have a huge impact as to how the receiver thinks about the message. However, if it is a person that's a known individual, a known human being, there's no hesitation to respond. So prior to this podcast, Rob messaged me saying, "Hung, more or less, where the hell are you?" And it was like, it was great. Because I know Rob, he's got my WhatsApp. We're on conversation there. There's no question I'd be able to open that without fear. And I think the future for recruitment in many respects will be people that are able to use AI to really get efficient and automate, but also be conspicuously human also. Like, can you use the time spared in order to build the relationships, the trust relationships that get you to get people to basically open your email without a hesitation.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of building of social capital. We used to call it personal brand, but I think personal brand is really going to come back. We'll probably call it something different. Personal
Yeah.
brand itself needs rebranding, but the best practices that we saw in 2010 or so, when we had these social media influencers talking about personal brand, I think they're very relevant today in 2025, 2026. We need to be very obviously human. We need to increase our authentic communication because basically candidates, clients, everyone in recruitment is going to be starved of this, and they'll be drawn to moths like to drawn to moths to a flame, so to say, like moths to a flame, to people who we are very sure are human beings.
Hmm. Wow, spot on. Absolutely. Again, it's just going back to being reminded about being authentic in everything that you do. But it does. I think a lot of us are very suspicious when we're looking at emails or messages, and we're always wondering, is this AI generated? Is this a real human behind this communication? So, absolutely, I think that's becoming more and more prominent. And
And Nick's, I mean, I use AI all the time, but the one
mm,
thing that we've got plenty of, but don't have enough of, is time. Okay.
yeah,
And that is the main reason why I use AI is that if it's going to save me time, okay, so that I can utilize that time for the more human things, that's why
yeah,
you use it. Don't let it replace you, but use it to
absolutely.
enhance you.
Exactly. And I mean, Rob, this one's also for you. I mean, starting out, when you started running Red Eye through the recessions, the global shifts, I mean, there's obviously been a need for not just this particular business, but many businesses out there to really innovate and identify gaps in the market and try and provide different services. Now, there's a TA advisory offering that the Red Eye Holborn group also offers, and growing the business with the right people, together with that. Can you tell us more a little bit about that offering?
So absolutely, Nix. The reason for our TAS division, that's TAAS, Talent Acquisition Advisory Service, why we came up with that, is because the
Yeah,
landscape in recruitment is changing and has changed. The number of internal recruitment teams that one has, the number of internal recruiters, the cost of recruiters. Let's not kid. I mean, South Africa is pretty cheap from a recruitment basis. The average is 15% on cost to company, whereas other countries are anything from 20 to 25%.
yeah,
And so what I've said to the clients is, what is your biggest gripe with recruitment companies? And they say, well, the cost, it's astronomical. And most of our companies, our clients have actually gone the LinkedIn route or gone the internal recruitment route or both, and they've cut their costs massively. So I've said to them, well, let us help you with that. Let's be an extension to your team and partner with you guys and help you with your bottlenecks. Instead of doing the whole process for you, let's bill you a guaranteed amount for some hours spent where we can help you with your research. We can help you with employer branding research. We can help you with, sourcing. I mean, a client of ours came to us the other day and said, I've put this advert on LinkedIn and now I've got 1,000 responses and I don't have the time to go through 1,000 responses. So I said, okay, let's settle down. Let us take those responses, put it into our AI filtering system, match it to the job spec, and spit out 20 responses. Then what we'll do, we'll interview 10 of those. We'll then give you 5 of those, and you go straight from advert to second round interview, and you just pay us for the time we spent. So suddenly it's not a contingency fee, it's a guaranteed fee that we get, which is about 1/4 of the total amount. Client is happy, we're happy, everybody wins in the whole process, and it's just about saving time. So that's where we've kind of decided, how do we help our clients? Because in South Africa in particular, we've got a massive amount of clients. We've been running for all these years. Let's help them to become better. And I think that is where we have shifted from 2008, when we started in the credit crisis, very different problems then, to I think there was a few other crises in between, to COVID, to the AI generation, etc. And we are still thriving because we've managed to change with the times. Whereas a lot of recruiters out there will go, but we've always done it this way. Why is it not happening? Guys, you have to change with the times.
Yeah, spot on. I think that's amazing, Rob. And I think it's so important, to really understand what problems are your clients facing, because that's going to change all the time, and always being able to offer them potential solutions. So I absolutely love that.
Well,
And
I
I
always
do
say that you've got two ears and one mouth. Use it in that proportion. Hear what they're
precisely.
saying and fix it.
Yeah, especially if we can, and we've got the skills and the specialization to do so. So I wanted to focus on leadership and talking about some life lessons. So Hung, do you have any interesting life lessons that have been so valuable to you? It's shaped your journey, throughout even just leadership. Could you share any with us?
Yeah, I can because I kind of don't like the term leader for myself. I don't identify as a leader and I actually reject it generally. That the reason why is because inherently I don't enjoy leadership. It comes with lots of conditions, lots of sacrifices, lots of compromises. So I've got huge admiration for those good people that embrace leadership positions. There are also some bad people that embrace leadership for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But the lessons I've learned is that firstly, leadership is not just is not always just charisma.
Mm.
It's not always the person that's able to, come in and be the charming figure in the room. It's really about being able to mobilize a group of people that might have very different opinions and different thoughts into a joint collective objective. And the way to do that oftentimes is to be able to articulate what that vision is, explain why it is in everyone's interest to go ahead and do that, but then enforce the rules to get people to do this thing. And that requires a toughness, that requires a clarity of judgment. There will be inevitably moments where you get challenged. It's very much like a teacher in a classroom type scenario. There's always going to be 10% of the kids that are going to just try and push the edges to figure out exactly what you're up to. Now, what you've got to do is to basically stick true to what the North Star of that team, and that team could be assembled in real time. It doesn't have to be a permanent team. It could be, hey, here's a project group. We'll just rapidly source a group of people together. Here's the objective. In the military, that's often the case. In change management, that's often the case. Well, guess what? The leader is the person that understands where the North Star is, the end objective. And the job of that leader is to mobilize everyone towards that goal and then make the decisions to say, okay, this is how it is. And I've found in moments where I've had that position is that so long as you're really quite fair with your judgments, then even people that might not like you are often aligned with the mission. Because they understand that you have to make that decision and it's for the benefit of others. And the converse is also true. Like there's people that do really like you, but for some reason they struggle to adopt sort of or align with the mission. And your job as the leader is, in fact, to be very tough with that and to suspend your personal relationships in order to make sure that the team objective is being delivered. That's tough. Too tough for me. This is why I don't do it anymore. But credit to those that do. But I do understand a little bit through my own failings as a leader what great leadership is.
Yeah, I love that, Hung.
I think you're more of a leader than you might imagine. And I mean, I've seen your following. I follow you on your recruitment brain food, and if people don't follow you yet, they need to. But I like on that particular point, I think everybody's different. So I lead from behind, I lead from the back, and if somebody trips in front of me, I like to pick them up, help them, show them the right direction. So I think leadership is seen very differently by different people. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean rule with the wooden stick and all of that. But I do believe you are a true leader, though.
Thank you, Rob.
Definitely some leadership characteristics. And I guess everyone's different in what that leadership role would look like. I mean, you could just be someone who's a great influencer and very inspiring and a great role model to other people. But I mean, Rob, reflecting on building a global business from South Africa, the don't do it days or versus the moments of thank goodness we did it. Can you share some of maybe what those moments were or some of those decisions?
Oh, it's a wonderful question. I think as time goes by and as you get a little bit older, your visions change. Would I ever do it again? It's an interesting question. I think what I went through, I wouldn't change it for the world. But I'd probably also think twice before jumping into it. And sometimes, I think we had this conversation earlier. Sometimes too much thinking is probably a bad thing as well. And you've just got to take that leap of faith. To anybody wanting to start a business, I think 50% of the challenge is actually going out and doing it and to take that leap of faith and trusting yourself and knowing that you will be good enough to actually do it. Throughout, there's been many bumps along the way. And you talk about a successful global business. I mean, I often say to people that it's taken 17 years to become an overnight success. It's I think at one point there was a stage where we had about a month left of cash flow before I don't know what could have happened, but you've got to put on that brave face and soldier through and get through it. There's been moments going through to the UK where I've gone, well, I'm starting over again, and now what? And getting the connections again, and getting to know people again, and all of that. And
Yeah.
every day. My actual philosophy, by the way, is that I treat every single day as if it's my first day of operation, and that's what I try and do because I know that it could fail tomorrow. I know that it can succeed tomorrow, but if I don't try, I'm never going to get. And there's no giving up and there's just continuing. I think what's changed from the beginning is, 17 years ago, I wanted this business to be 1,000 strong and contractors and clients and this and that. And, now I'm happy with a smaller business that's efficient, that's well known, that is respected in the industry. And, one day on my gravestone, I wanted to say, he was a good oak. He was a good guy. I don't want it to say the opposite. So, the bottom line is I think as you get older, your wants, your needs, your views change. And, from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s, you want different things over time. And I think that is how it's also changed for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, talking about leadership and entrepreneurship, I mean, let's talk about balance. Like balance is so important. Balance between the hard graft and the grit and just taking some time out for yourself. And I'd love to know from both of you what keeps you grounded outside of work.
Yeah, I mean, I can give this a shot. I think part of this is it's really quite important for you to do the job that you're very much like aligned to. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, so work is obviously I do a lot of, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a grind, even though I'm doing massive hours often. And I think that's because generally speaking, it's pretty much aligned to my natural behavior anyway. The main thing I do is essentially consume a lot of information. Spread a lot of information. That's basically the job of recruiting brain food. Now, I would imagine I'd probably do that in my spare time anyway. So it doesn't feel like a grind. I do think where people get burnt out, and I've had some experience of this back in my sort of probably towards the end part of my career as a recruitment agent. I would say the last 12 months or so, I actually had a really good year. It was a fabulous year, probably the top billing year I ever had, but it
Yeah.
felt like a grind. And that's when I kind of realized, you know what, it's probably end of the road for this format of my work, simply because I was mentally jaded by doing it. And I think in those circumstances, there's probably, you could argue, a work-life balance is a good idea, because you don't want to be spending too much of your time on stuff that really is dispiriting. However, work-life balance in that context, I think, is a little bit of a patch up of a situation that's probably long-term untenable anyway. Ideal, optimal is not always achievable, by the way, but the
Yeah.
optimal thing is to try and find the work that you would do even if no one paid you to do it. Is there something that is there some component of work, or activity that you do for its own sake? And if you
Mm.
could find more of that type of stuff that then gets monetized for you, then that's amazing. Not easy to find. I totally get it. Most of us aren't ever there. But that's, I think, the ultimate end game. I think all of us would trade is to try and find what that thing is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. Rob, from your side, in terms of balance?
I love what Hans says, and
Yeah.
earlier, Nix, you said Rob Mailich is the global CEO of Red Eye Holborn. And I actually thought, you know what? It's a lovely title, and thank you. It sounds great. I actually left my accounting career to Hung's point. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't there. And then I became a recruiter and I hit it like a duck to water. I was headhunted into recruitment. It was a crazy move for me and I loved it. And then as I set up Red Eye Recruitment, Holborn Advisory, Red Eye Holborn, we became a bigger group. I started to become an accountant again. And I started to put in consolidations. And I then became the CFO of this group of companies. And to Hung's point, I started to loathe it because it just wasn't me. I moved out of that industry. And
Yeah.
more recently, I just became a recruiter again, and I found that passion. I love it, absolutely love it, and it doesn't feel like I'm working at all when I make a difference in people's lives. We've placed around 4,000 people, and imagine the difference we've made in 4,000 people's lives, in their families' lives, in their worlds, and all of that. That is the feeling you long for. But what do I do in my spare time? I love the health and wellness aspect. I mean, if I could be cycling and running and golfing and playing paddle and playing pickle and squash and all of that kind of stuff all day long, that is actually what I would do. I do take a lot of time off for events. I think I mentioned to Hung recently that I cycled from London to Paris this year. It was in my 50th year. I had to do something a little bit different. I try go on ski trips. I try go on golf tours. So in between that hard work, and let me tell you that those ski trips, the golf tours, it's all networking anyway. You're constantly working and having fun. And if you can incorporate that in your life by working, having fun, you've got it made.
Is
Yeah.
is Rob trying to justify some extra ski trips here? Sounds like it sounds like that's what he's
Well,
doing.
Trying to not
well,
feel
hun, that
guilty.
was that was the part that my wife should hopefully listen to the podcast and be listening to all of this. So hopefully she knows what's coming up, eh?
Amazing. I kind of want to wrap up with looking ahead. So I'm really interested and curious to know what both of you think 2026 holds. I mean, we're actually a few days away from 2026. I can't believe that. But I mean, Hung, maybe we can kick off with you. What are your insights to what 2026 will bring when we're talking about recruitment and talent acquisition and the fact that technology is just taking over?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another. I mean, we've been on a roller coaster for the last 5 years, right? Or if I prefer the term washing machine, on a permanent spin cycle. I think that that's going to be persistent. One thing that I think most of us have now accepted, is that we're not going to get some sort of like magical elastic band bounce back to the era of 2021. We're in a different timeline, and that timeline is dominated by a lot of things that are probably not amazing. Global uncertainty, global economic insecurity, the rise of AI, which is really going to mean significant changes with regards to how companies think about resourcing their operations. Bottom line is, I think it's going to be another super challenging year for the traditional recruitment models. And that's true for agency side, that's true for in-house and all the rest of it. We're looking at a complete reworking as to how companies build their operations. And the challenge for us in sort of the recruitment function is to really reevaluate what our value is to our customers. Ultimately, I see that we're a business enablement function. A company is trying to do X. Typically, a recruitment service or an internal recruitment function is there to deliver that capacity to do X in some fashion. Now, previously, that was a permanent employee somewhere. And then it became, oh, maybe it's a remote employee somewhere else. Now it may be an AI agent in the cloud somewhere. Can the recruitment function be the organization that can deliver that capacity, irrespective of whether it's a human or an AI worker? So I think we're going to have an opportunity to really reimagine how we operate. The winners are going to
Yeah.
be those that are able to build those trust relationships. So again, we go back to the best practice of 1970s, the best practice of a bygone era now. That's 50 years ago. Will translate directly into positive outcomes in the AI enabled era. So
Mm.
very exciting, but it'll be wrong for me to say it's going to be roses and rings for everybody. I think it's going to be a big fallout, big shakedown, and a kind of a new world. I imagine AI in this period really is kind of like an ecosystem shift.
Mm.
So when you have an ecosystem wide sort of shift, this is not just in recruitment, by the way, it's almost everyone who's working in any function. There's going to be lots of ecological damage, and then there's going to be new ecological niches emerge, and then there'll be opportunities for those survivors, so to say, to occupy and dominate those new niches. This is how humans basically became the dominant species on the planet. So we should have optimism there. We as a species are quite good at this. So we've got to kind of channel that in our DNA and embrace this amazing but tough period.
Yeah, those are some amazing insights, Hung. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I mean, Rob, what are your thoughts for 2026?
As the famous Ricky Bobby once said, if you ain't first, you're last. And I just think that you need to be ahead of the pack. You need to
Yeah.
be innovative. You need to be listening to your clients' needs. I mean, going back to our TAS division, what we're doing is recruitment internal audits. We're going to our clients and say, let's do an audit of your recruitment practice. We know what best practice is. So let us help you with what is best practice. And we've got those relationships built. They trust us. They know what we're capable of. And at least then we can look at how can we improve their systems? How can we improve their processes? I think there's still going to be a lot of redundancies. I think there's a lot of roles that are obsolete, that have become obsolete, that are going to become obsolete as well. And yet, there's a lot of roles now that 10 years ago were never even invented. So the world is constantly changing. And I think if we are adapting with the world, we will find that success. If you complain about how you always did it, you will get what you always got. And that is not how the world is moving. And it's moving at lightning speed. So I do believe that every conversation we have is going to involve AI, and that is the way
Yeah.
forward. And how can we make things work moving forward for our clients using that technology, helping them with their technology? And we're not necessarily going to make as much money or as many placements per client. But just build those clients and you will still be okay. And I think it's going to be a great year. I think, look, I always think, Guns and Roses. I think that everything is going to be great all the time until it's not. But you've just got to have that positivity. And,
Yeah.
I do believe that next year will be a better year and it will consistently get better until we're back at that 21, 22 type level as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully at a later stage, it'll be like shooting fish in a barrel once more.
Amazing. Thank you, Rob. Again, I think it's just those key characteristics that keep us going, which is always the resilience and the perseverance and never giving up. But thank you to our incredible panel of recruitment veterans. We will share contact details for both Rob and Hung in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. As you know, each conversation is designed to inspire and challenge and expand your understanding on the business world, especially through the lens of talent acquisition and recruitment. But we will see you on the next one. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, eh? And Hung, lovely to see you again as well.
No worries. I'll be back in South Africa, by the way, next year in March. So I'll look forward to seeing as many people as I can then.
Amazing.
Definitely.